We know there are many things wrong with the leadership today in this country. Let me identify three, because my intention is not to really revile these people, but to talk about some of the institutional issues. The first is, somehow in India, in society at large and in politics in particular, and of course in public administration, we tend to think that leadership is a function of power and position. It is not the attributes of the leader, the capacity of the leader to lead, to inspire, and to take us forward, but it is the fact that somebody is anointed and is put in that position that makes the person the leader. Some years ago, the Time magazine wrote in one of its pieces in India, the correspondent wrote a very expressive sentence. He said, in India, the man who wears the crown is the king. It is not the king who wears the crown. There's a fundamental distinction. If you somehow grab the crown, put it on your own head, you are the king and that's it. And you are the leader and everybody has to prostrate before you. Now, this afternoon when I switched on the television for a couple of minutes, I was watching Rahul Gandhi's statement of the 10th of this month apparently. And he was talking about how leadership must rise in parties and in politics, and how there must be a proven record of service and so on and so forth. And it's good that he said it. It's also ironic that he said it. And that it has to be said in this day and age, and therefore it's news when it is said. It says so much about ourselves. Because Rahul Gandhi, not today, but from the moment of his birth, was anointed as the future leader of this country. As simple as this. It didn't matter if he was a moron or a bright guy. It didn't matter if he was a crook or a decent person. I'm sure he's a decent person, he's a bright person. I have no quarrel. I never met him, but I'm sure he's decent. But even if he were not, he would still be anointed. Or a 35-year-old youngster, unknown, unheralded until recently, had absolutely no claim to any kind of public service, suddenly had his birthday celebrated by hundreds of thousands of people in this state. There were no birthdays for 34 years, and suddenly, birthdays everywhere, with huge cutouts. A CD released, I don't know, saying what? That we took so many breaths in life, there were so many heartbeats, and I don't really know. What else is the CD about? And anointed as a future leader. So, that expression of the Time magazine always comes back to my mind. In India, the man who wears the crown is the king. We never understood the importance of a person with the right attributes leading. In almost any walk of life. It applies to public administration as well. Once you join the public service as an IAS officer or ICS officer, you can say with a reasonable degree of certainty what would happen to you 35 years hence. No surprises whatsoever. It doesn't matter what you do in between. I know of people who for 30, 35 years mastered the art of doing nothing. I was with a governor a decade or so ago, more than a decade and a half ago. I'm growing old, I must remember that. And particularly when Ankur talks about a young party, I feel myself incredibly old in that party. This governor, a decent enough person, but once you are in those positions, not knowing what to do, you always become a bit of an interloper, a bit of a nuisance. It's very tempting. After all, power abhors vacuum, and therefore you must do something there. So he was trying to interfere, trying to meddlesome, and I told him, Mr. Governor, in obstetrics we have a dictum, the science of childbirth. You must observe two things, watchful expectancy and masterly inactivity. A good obstetrician is one who observes these two, watchful expectancy and masterly inactivity, because nature does its job most of the time. Occasionally it demands intervention. A wise obstetrician is one who realizes that there are very few moments that call for such intervention. Otherwise, you do more damage than good. Well, unfortunately, the people who adorn the executive branch of government in this country, the paid civil servants, many of them have mastered this art. That's not expected of them. Or there are others who made civil service into a thriving personal business. There was and there are civil servants whose personal assets, without any honest income, source of livelihood or income apart from their paltry salary. They are worth about 1,000 crores or 2,000 crores. One of them, incidentally, is a lady. So, even the notion that women probably are likely to be more honest, I believe, in general, women are much more honest. But some people are out to disprove that too. So it doesn't matter where you come from. So this notion that hierarchy and a position that comes to you not because of your attributes or your capacity to deliver or your proven record of service, but because you're anointed, is a tremendous danger in almost all walks of life. Only in business in recent times, things are improving because of the competition. You simply have to deliver to survive. Earlier, even in business in this country, it is the boss's son who became generally the next chief executive, come chairman, come everything. But now increasingly professionalization is necessary because bosses' sons don't necessarily deliver unless you manipulate the stock market. You can't do it all the time after all. I mean, there's going to be some denouement one day. The second is leadership, particularly in the public domain, is about the power of ideas, the communication of those ideas, inspiring people around those ideas and making ordinary people do uncommon things. And that's what, from Dada Bhai Naoroji to Rajnipam Dutt to Chittarajan Das to Subhash Chandra Bose, that's what they did. And even the more emotional leaders like Bhagat Singh, and Shahid Bhagat Singh's 77th death anniversary falls on 23rd of this month. The other day I was reading Bhagat Singh's statement after he was incarcerated and he was to be hanged. And there was, of course, a huge movement to let him off lightly without hanging him, to grant pardon. Bhagat Singh wrote a masterly one-page brief telling people why he believed that he would serve the cause of India by dying on the scaffold rather than being let off, getting a reprieve. Or Sitaram Raju, our own local hero in Andhra Pradesh, another man who willingly sacrificed his life. Again, it was a very conscious choice, not merely an emotional choice. It was also an intellectual choice. They understood what they were doing. They were willing to pay that price. I'm not saying that price is necessary all the time. But the point is, these were all men of great intellect, men of ideas, men who knew how to communicate those ideas, men who knew how to inspire. And today, well, to be honest, in the past 30 years, I cannot recall a single speech of a major leader in the country. I mean, no disrespect to many of them wonderful people, focused on any particular sector, let us say education, or healthcare, or rule of law, or something else. Doesn't matter what it is. I mean, it may be the Prime Minister of the day or Chief Minister of the day who is focused on a particular theme. After all, politicians have to make choices and they have to decide what they believed was the country's interest. Whatever be the theme, a coherent, intelligent, meaningful speech with ideas and inspiration and which had any kind of a durable value. I do not think of a single such speech in the past 30 to 40 years of India's national life. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going out on a limb now to make this statement. I'm racking my brains. I'm trying to remember if there's one coherent speech of quality on any single issue of great importance to this country and its future. Where are ideas? And what is leadership without ideas? Without the inspiration of those ideas, without those enduring long-term goals.